All right. So a very sincere hello and welcome to everyone who is joining at this present moment for our monk life community meditation practice hosted by me, Bhante Varrapanyo. I'm just coming back from about a month hiatus, something like that, about a month of time probably more than a month, where I took time away from teaching and hosting these group meditations. So I feel quite energized and pleasantly surprised to be back and to have so many people here joining and interested in the meditation practice, interested in learning and growing in a deeper understanding of suffering and the way of transforming suffering. So that's kind of what we are here together to do today. So the general idea, the general focus is that we are coming together at this moment to practice meditation. So to be in a meditative state of mind, which is basically summarized by you have to know our intention, okay, to have a sincere intention to be here. If you don't have a strong intention that you want to be here, you're not going to be able to do it. It's just like if you have, like, you want to go for a walk and you think that going for a walk will help you out in your life, right? It will be beneficial. It will be nice. If the moment you step out the door, you're like, well, wait a minute, it's cold or it's too hot or it's stuffy or it's this or it's that, and you immediately give up, you're not going for a walk. And if you always act in that way, then you're never really going to be able to experiment and to learn what works and learn what doesn't. So the biggest thing that we need to have here is this intentionality, this sincerity that, we do want to meditate, and we do want to learn about Buddhist teachings, deeper teachings about the nature of mind and the way of transforming suffering, that we have a real, intentional, sincere interest in that. So that's that initial spark that we need to make the fire. If we have that, then the second aspect is our kind of, what is a meditative approach? What does it mean to be in a meditative space together with other people? It basically means that we are prioritizing and emphasizing mindfulness and detachment. And we're willing to experiment and kind of practice with this. So the mindfulness aspect is to be aware of what's happening right now. Okay, and there are many dimensions to that. One dimension is, okay, using your eyes. You can see, I'm sure you can see me. I'm sharing my video. You can also see different people here who are sharing their videos. All right, and so this seeing is happening in the present moment. That's one aspect of mindfulness. The other aspect is that your breath is happening in the present moment. Your experience of the body is here in the present moment, right? So this mindfulness is to be aware of what's happening right now. And that is it's an action. It's a way of being, to come back to be aware of what's happening right now. Whether it's a sound or a sight or a feeling or an emotion or a thought, but continuously coming back to being aware of what's happening right now, and especially the breath. So we can really rely on just sitting here and breathing, and all the people who are gathered here together, the audio, the visual. This is kind of inspiration to connect and to touch this present moment and to feel that out and to be with that. And sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable. It's not that we're going to La La Land. It's not that we're going to fairy playtime land. There's an intimacy, there's a closeness, a rawness that we want to feel, that we want to connect with when we practice meditation. Okay, when we're aware of what's happening in the present moment. And the other aspect is the detachment. So that's to continue and to stay in this kind of meditation space, detachment is very important. And that is our willingness to let go of what we pick up. That is our willingness to let go or to put down what we get involved with. So you have a thought or a feeling of, oh, I want to go eat cheesecake. Or, oh, my body feels uncomfortable, I'm done with this. Or, oh, I want to do something else, and we immediately give up. Or we feel something that's unsatisfactory and we want to give up. So we want to go somewhere else. We want to kind of do something else. Instead of that, we practice detachment. So whatever we are aware of at this moment, being willing to let that go. Whether it's an idea or a sensation or a thought or a desire or a fear or a judgment, we are aware of it, but we're also really willing to put that down, to let that go, and to come back to our mindfulness. Okay, to come back to our awareness of the breath, being aware of what's happening in the present moment. So today we're going to start with a few moments of kind of testing and touching that sincerity, that intentionality to be here, and that mindfulness and detachment. So to be aware of what's happening right now and that willingness to let go of what we get caught up in, what we get involved with. We'll spend a few moments to, hey there, Sophie. We'll spend a few moments to be with that, be in that space. And then we're going to go into some selected teachings, some selected Buddhist teachings that are going to impart some wisdom to us from a really well-regarded Buddhist philosopher in the past, in this century, I guess, lived about 50 to 80 years ago, named Buddhadasa, who was a Buddhist monk, a philosopher monk, and very serious practitioner in the Thai forest tradition. And his teachings are quite significant because he is one of the monks who really took the religious style of Buddhist teachings about rebirth or karma and said that, these are talking about qualities of mind in the present moment. They're not talking about some space out there, some special heaven, some other world, other universe where we go after we die, but that birth and death and cause and effect and all the different realms of existence and experience that we go through are all happening in this present moment. So he brings a really powerful dimension to that way of understanding Buddhist practice. Okay? So if that sounds agreeable to everyone, then you're in the right place. All right? So let's start with that, these few moments of mindfulness and detachment. So if you're not already in a comfortable meditation position, get into one. Get comfortable. Take a few moments to begin really giving your full attention to the body and making sure that the body is comfortable, finding that comfortable, stable position. And beginning to notice and feel your breath. Don't need to rush to find that comfortable position. It's really what's important is to give that extra layer of intention to finding a comfortable position for your body. And to do that, you need to really touch the body. You need to connect with the body with your attention. So finding that comfortable, stable position and beginning to tune the dial, tune the radio dial of your mind's attention to the breath, to this happening, this process of breathing that's going on right now, especially feeling the breath as it comes in through the nose, as it flows in through the nose. And start to follow. Give your full attention to the breath as it goes in through the nose and goes through the nostrils, through the throat, all the way down into the lungs, the stomach, And you can, if you have a lot of difficulty in focusing or a lot of difficulty in kind of placing your attention and starting to get into focusing, just breathe with a lot of control. Breathe deeply, really get involved with the breath, and through that involvement, bring the mind home to the body. Really start to be aware of the body through that sincere, not so much forceful breathing, but you're really getting involved with the breath. So you can breathe in deeply and feel the breath in the body. Feel the breath as it flows in and flows out. And as you breathe in that way, becoming more aware of the reality of the body, this body of reality. The heart, the chest, the shoulders, the head, the stomach, the thighs, the legs. And there's not a particular way that we're looking for the body to feel. Maybe the body's moving, maybe there's motion, maybe there's stillness, maybe there's distraction. We're not looking for a particular quality of the body. We're really starting to notice that there is a body sitting here. You don't need to go looking around for your body. It's right here. So feeling the breath come into the body, becoming more and more aware of the body that is here right now. Breathing as deeply as you need to. Breathing in whatever way helps you to connect with the whole body sitting here at this moment. Allowing that quality of mindfulness, that quality of being aware of what's happening right now to brighten, to open up, to become more at the forefront of your life. Breathing and being aware of what's happening right now in the body. Any major barriers or difficulties that will lead you to giving up or like, I can't do this. Just breathe. Just focus on your breath. Surely you can do that, and just take this as a time, your meditation is the time to just breathe. Be involved with the breath. Almost breathing as if you are a caretaker. You're taking care of the body. You are giving the body what it needs through your breathing. Being aware of what's happening right now. And as we notice this capacity, this ability to be mindful, to be aware of what's happening in the present moment, which is not a story, but is a very direct present moment experience, right? To be aware of what's happening right now. Breathing and being aware. We can also notice this quality, this ability of detachment. This ability to let go of the present moment sensation. We don't need to hang on to it. And even if we hang on to it, we have this capacity to let it go. And that impermanence or change is constantly happening. Sensations, thoughts, stories, feelings, qualities of mind, qualities of the body are constantly coming up and passing away. So we have not only this ability to be aware of what's happening in the present moment, but we also have this ability to not get stuck, to detach, to let go, to be uninvolved with whatever we get involved with. Just coming back to mindfulness, feeling the breath, feeling the body as the breath flows in and flows out. Okay, so we will now begin with our Buddhist teachings portion of our event. And something to keep in mind with Buddhist teachings is that none of these are really emphasizing a doctrine or a belief system or something like a formula that you need to figure out or solve or memorize. These teachings are coming from a place of deep meditation from the monk or the Buddhist teacher or the meditation teacher, whatever it is. And so how we listen to those teachings is from that place of almost that we listen from the body, we listen from the breath, we listen from our awareness rather than our thinking. And it is as if we are, through listening from our breath, listening from our heart, listening from our body, it's like we're opening up the roof that is over our garden so that this Dharma rain can fall down. These truth teachings can fall down. And of course, if something sounds off, if something sounds really strange, in the middle of this reading or these teachings that I say, and so if you want to become enlightened, you need to worship Lord Zulu. Well, don't be ignorant, say what's going on here. You can speak up. But for most of this, it's quite direct, and it's not something you need to think about. It's more something that you need to open your heart up to receive, and I include myself in that as well, so that we can be inspired and empowered to continue on our path, connecting with the truth and understanding this way of transforming suffering more clearly, more directly. Okay? And as I read through this, I will also add some of my own commentary. And if you feel confused by something, or if you have a particular question about something, don't hesitate to raise your hand or to speak up, and you can ask a question and I'll try to clarify that. All right? So this first chapter here is entitled The Ordinary Conditions of Human Life. And the title of this book is Seeing with the Eye of Dhamma. That means seeing with the eye of truth. Okay? So, starting with the ordinary conditions of human life. Now we will begin by looking at the basic nature of ordinary human life and the issues that we ought to be aware of. I will endeavor to speak in terms that will be easy to grasp and study. Causes and conditions shape life's many forms. The very first topic is that this life can take many forms, depending on the major causes and conditions. Life, as each of us normally lives it, as already exists and is known by us, has causes and conditions that lead to our particular manners of living. So life as we normally live it, as we normally know it, you don't need any kind of special understanding. As it already exists, has causes and conditions, certain things that have led to it being this way at this moment, and conditions that perpetuate it to be this way at this moment, that have led to this way of living. Okay, it's according to causes and conditions, cause and effect. Other ways of living that we don't necessarily know about can come about in the same way. For instance, a life that is worse than ours can easily be had by anyone who behaves accordingly, just in the same way that our way of living comes easily to us. So the way of experiencing, the way of living that we have comes to us through causes and conditions, and a worse way of life also comes about according to causes and conditions, according to the actions that we take and the kind of circumstances that we find ourselves in. A more elevated way of life, which improves and excels until reaching that of an arahat, also can be cultivated. So that means a more elevated way of life that leads to development, advancement in peace and wisdom, which improves and excels, can also be cultivated. In the same way that we can develop a worse way of living, in the same way that the current way of living that we have has come about naturally. So the enlightened form of life comes about easily for those who are on track to become enlightened. We have the capacity to choose among the causes and conditions that will create and shape the life that we aspire to. So we have the ability, among and in the situation that we're already in right now, to pick and choose, to make certain decisions that are going to lead us to either a worse life or a better life, a more skillful life, a more developed and tranquil life, eventually to becoming an enlightened person. Ordinarily, we don't understand this and just allow life to meander according to fate. Or we can say according to the momentum of cause and effect up to this point, according to the momentum of our causes and conditions up to this point. So ordinarily, we don't understand that life as we live it has causes and conditions that have led to it being this way. And people who have a worse way of life than us also have causes and conditions that have led to that life being that way. And just as easily as we can live a more elevated life, we can also live a worse life according to how we make decisions and pick and choose according to skillful actions or unskillful actions. But ordinarily, we don't understand this. Ordinarily, we don't accept this. Rather, we just allow life to meander according to the momentum of our actions up to this point, or the causes and conditions up to this point. We don't get involved ordinarily, right? We don't step into the driver's seat. We just kind of allow life to meander. Well, I'm depressed. Well, I'm overweight. Well, I'm too skinny. Well, I am too attached to a certain form of a relationship or to sexuality, right? I'm seeking this out. And ordinarily, we don't get involved. We just allow life to meander according to the momentum of our causes and conditions up to this point. We let fate determine our lives while we give in to our momentary needs and passing desires. So rather than getting involved, rather than taking the reins, we just allow life to meander, and we allow fate, that momentum, to determine our lives, while we give in and try to satisfy our momentary needs and passing desires. For instance, young monks go through the process of becoming a monk without knowing what they really want. So they let things happen according to passing circumstances. They see friends studying for the Dhamma examinations, so they do the same. So for Buddhist monks, there's like a Buddhist college, Buddhist tests and things like that certain avenue you can go down. They see friends studying for these Buddhist examinations, so they do the same. Seeing friends studying Pali, they do the same. So Pali is like the original Buddhist language. They don't know why they are studying. They assume it will be good and beneficial somehow. In reality, such monks don't know why they do what they do, although they have undertaken a way of life supposedly dedicated to Dhamma. So, a lot of us, we just do what happens to be in our environment, happens to be convenient for us to do, but we don't really know why we're doing it. And the same is even true of monks, who take that step into the spiritual life or the meditative life. People who don't leave home or don't go through the process of becoming monks for the sake of Dhamma or the sake of understanding the truth, people who remain in the life of home and city, also allow things to be carried along by fate, by circumstances. The little desires arising from the daily kilesas. So the kilesas are like our daily regular afflictions and corruptions of mind. We get afflicted by lust or desire or attachment or anger. So these people who don't leave home also allow things to be carried along by fate, by circumstances. The little desires arising from the daily afflictions and corruptions of our mind, greed, anger, delusion, lead them along because they don't understand the whole story of life, which means that they're not able to take that backward step when that anger arises, when that desire arises, when that fear arises. They think, they just moved along by that, carried along by that, rather than taking that backward step. Because they don't understand the whole story of life. Their knowledge is not complete. So they can't get to the heart of the matter and focus on what is best. They don't see that the best is available. If one truly understands the causes and conditions of whatever way of life one may choose, one can create the causes and conditions for that life. So if one truly understands the causes and conditions of whatever way of life one may choose, one can create the causes and conditions for that life. So we have to understand deeply that certain actions lead to certain effects, positive or negative, skillful or unskillful. We need to understand those causes and effects deeply, subtly. Please be certain that life can take many forms depending on its causes and conditions. We can choose the best possible form for us if we know how to choose and how to aspire. We need not surrender to circumstances and fate. Okay, so the first aspect of understanding here is that we're not just in a never-ending wave of momentum of cause and effect, but the reason that things are the way that they are right now is because of causes and conditions that we have an ability to effect. And in the same way that it can be worse, it can be much better. So firstly, seeing that capacity, that ability to not just be dependent on fate all the time. Okay, and then we can choose the best possible form for us if we know how to choose, how to get involved, how to take that backward step, and how to aspire, how to make that deep, compassionate aspiration, that vow, right, to help others, that vow to train the mind, that vow to end sufferings. Then we need not surrender to circumstances and fate. Whatever circumstances come up, whatever fate, whatever momentum has led us into this moment, we can take the backward step. Doesn't matter how our mind is, doesn't matter how our body is, the situation that we find ourselves in, we can take that backward step at this moment. To sum up, we don't know why we were born and what we were born to do. Lacking this knowledge, we allow life to be carried along by fate, by the momentum of cause and effect. We let fate or destiny choose our forms of life for us, which is so unwise it's beyond crazy. You've got to get involved. You've got to get involved. I sympathize with all those in this plight. Hence, I tried to point out the fact that there are causes and conditions that can create the life that we truly deserve. So take an interest and study matters that the Buddha revealed, okay, or a great skillful teacher, okay? It doesn't need to be the Buddha, but the Buddha is a good one. Then choose the most appropriate form of life. Choose the most skillful, direct way of living to lead to your advancement and development in wisdom. Choose with appropriate and sufficient understanding rather than mere daydreaming or following along. We could have the best and most appealing sort of a life, but we won't if we don't know how to make it happen. Okay. Does anyone have any questions up to this point or any comments up to what we read so far? Okay. So satisfaction can be a part of whatever we do. We can live a life full of happiness and enjoyment, a life without any dissatisfaction, if we know how to work with mind. Buddha Dhamma, the Buddhist teachings or the higher truth, it doesn't need to be religious in any capacity, but the deeper truths can make the mind smart, bright, and clear, and thus able to know things as they truly are, so that there's none of the clinging, the attachment that makes life burdensome and causes suffering. Whatever is considered by people to be dukkha, to be suffering, to be unpleasant, is seen as just like that, just as it is. Whatever we see to be unpleasant, difficult, unsatisfactory, there's a way of seeing it that is just like that. The experience just as it is at this moment, without all those extra layers of me and my and self and others and wrong and right and like and dislike, but just to feel that unsatisfactoriness, and then you have much less suffering or no suffering. Because the real suffering that we tend to generate comes from all these extra layers that we stack onto an unpleasant feeling, or our desire to hold on to a pleasant feeling. That's where our real suffering, our misery, our depression, our agony originate from. Not that there's an unpleasantness, but that there's all these layers that we stack on top. Go ahead, Sophie. You want to ask a question?
Yeah, so are you saying that like every moment is kind of like the same?
Am I saying that every moment is kind of like the same?
Like you experience something that you regard as suffering, and then you relate it to this moment and you think how this is kind of like that.
It's more about being aware of what's happening right now with a quality of clarity, concentration, a direct experience, rather than an experience that is related to your intellectual interpretation of it. So the more that we can connect with, the more that we can dive into this ever new present moment, then we can know about what's actually happening right now. and we can know if it's every moment is the same or not, but you have to look to find out about that. It's not something your intellect can understand. Okay, and that
Right.
sameness of every present moment is more about the quality of awareness, that whatever is happening we have a capacity to be aware of, and to be aware of with detachment. So only aware, aware just as it is in this moment, rather than our intellectual interpretation of it. Okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's just like looking at a cloud. There's not so much intellect necessary. There's not so much you need to figure out or solve when you look at a cloud. It is this awareness itself that is going to give you the best understanding of what a cloud is, right? The experience of a cloud. And that does apply to any place, any time, any person, any situation. That awareness itself, that what Buddhadasa says here as whatever is considered by people to be dukkha, to be unpleasant, and that can be either clinging to a pleasurable experience or the goal of a pleasant experience, right? Something you want to get and hanging on to that, or trying to avoid, trying to push away to get rid of some unpleasant experience, right? Whatever is considered by people to be unpleasant, unsatisfactory, is seen as just like that. Awareness itself, seeing itself, hearing itself, experiencing only. And that is what we have a capacity to connect with that is never changing. The permanent nature of impermanence, we can say.
So, are you saying like Santa Claus is not real?
Well, you're going to have to find that out through your own experience.
He's not real.
Well,
Yeah.
that's just your perspective. I'm not going to take a side on that. All right, let's keep reading, okay? So, whatever is considered by people to be unpleasant, unsatisfactory, is seen as just like that. For instance, any duties that we must carry out are understood as good, appropriate, and excellent. Thus, we are satisfied by them. We can make our livings with contentment. When we know how to manage life so that we are happy in doing our work, there is no unsatisfactoriness involved in such activities. When we can bring our mind to be in the right space, the right intention, the right effort, the right understanding, when we can do only without relying on someone or something or these social dynamics, social interactions, we get so involved with other people, and then some crazy stuff happens, right? There's a great joy in being involved with the uninvolved and allowing people to meet you there rather than trying to go and get up in their mind because they happen to be nearby you. It can cause all kinds of problems. So if we know how to manage life, we can be happy in doing any activities. If we can experience it, if we can do it in this way of just like that, experiencing only, the duties that we carry out can be understood as good, appropriate, and excellent. And in that way, we will be easily satisfied by them. So if we know how to manage life so that we're happy in doing our work, then there is no suffering involved in such activities. Okay? And this is especially pointing to work that is ethical. It doesn't just mean a job. It just doesn't mean, how do you make money, but it's how do you express, how do you step out into the world in a way that brings benefit, development, advancement, to support, to take care of yourself and others. And that comes from that intentionality. And any job can be that, but jobs in themselves are not necessarily that. Okay, so doing our work is, we can say, in doing good deeds. I once watched people working in the mud. They were catching fish, and the work was dirty, sweaty, and stinky, full of thorns and other obstacles. Yet they thoroughly enjoyed themselves because they really liked getting the fish. They were happy with every fish they caught. No matter how difficult, dirty, and dangerous, they had a great time of it. Our lives are the same. If we know how to enjoy everything we must do, we will never suffer. For instance, if we are disappointed with something, instead of getting upset, we recognize how this is the nature of things and don't bother suffering about it. You lose someone, or you lose something, or you encounter a difficulty. It's this crack in the doorway of your self-fixation that shows the light of non-discrimination and especially impermanence. Nothing is going to be held on to, and nothing that you can hang on to is going to satisfy you, or that you can seemingly hang on to is going to satisfy you anyway. So if we experience this disappointment with something, instead of getting upset, we experience disappointment, but instead of getting upset, adding all those extra layers onto disappointment, we recognize how this is the nature of things. This is how things are. This is how your arm is. This is how your tongue is, your eyes are, your ears are. And we don't bother suffering about it. Everything is impermanent. Everything is temporary. Everything cannot fully satisfy us. And nothing exists separate from anything else. So that separation, that looking at one event as separate from anything else, is inherently confused, is inherently not really true. So we're bound to be in a state of suffering when we do that, when we separate. And at that moment, we disempower ourselves from doing what we should do, taking care, looking more closely, more intimately, because we've already set up this mindset that, oh, this is separate from that, and that's not true. Nothing is separate from anything. So, if we know how to enjoy everything we should do, we must do, we will never suffer. For instance, if we are disappointed with something, instead of getting upset, we recognize how this is the nature of things and don't bother suffering about it. If we're tired, if life is being difficult, again, we understand it as being just like that, just how it is. And that's really liberating, that you can come back to that again and again and again. Now, if you're just laying your arms back and you're floating through life from the momentum of all of your past actions and unskillfulness and cause and conditions, then this mindset is not really going to have any oomph to it. It's not going to have any empowerment to it. So it's going to be very surface level and probably just, you're kind of trying to dull yourself, or you're trying to ignore what's actually happening. But when you do have this practice, when you are getting involved with your life, it doesn't, not perfectly, but you are stepping into your practice and you're stepping into your sincerity, your intentionality to do good and to avoid doing bad, then this practice, this mindset of, you feel tired, life is being difficult, it's not going well, the people around you are not skillful, they're crazy, but you're staying with them. Life is being difficult, right? Again, we understand it as being just like that, just how it is. And it brings us really here into the present moment. It's like a superpower. It's just like that. This is just how it is. Wow. And that's beautiful. That's wonderful. The more that we can feel that. And the more that we feel that, we have a capacity to transcend our attachment to pain, to transcend our suffering when things are unpleasant, and also to transcend our suffering to this natural clinging that goes along with pleasurable things. And that momentum of attaching to pleasurable things, it's not really doing us any good anyway. So we need to learn how to detach from those activities, those desires, that false notion that a moment of pleasure is somehow going to be satisfying to us. It's really, really not, and we all know that. It's not going to work. But it's very subtle machinations of mind. It's a lot of subtle momentum, this animalistic momentum that we feel like, oh, this is pleasurable, so it's medicine. I've got to do it. I got to ignore my wisdom to get pleasure. Well, it doesn't work. So if we're tired, if life is being difficult, if we've just made a great mistake that we've made many times in the past and we've made it again, we understand it as being just like that, just how it is at this present moment. If we can look on the bright side, as it were, seeing whatever good or benefit is to be found, we can be happy in our labors and get the results and benefits for our lives. And that is to find the good, to find the joy in seeing. Just seeing itself right now. Just hearing itself right now. And especially going out into nature supports us to do that. We think, we feel, we tend to that, there's these big stimulating things and experiences and avenues that we want to go down to have joy and to have pleasure and to have this feeling of being satisfied, but those things are not very reliable. And a lot of the time you're putting yourself at risk, you're putting your mental or physical health at risk to go seek out this conditional pleasurable experience. But if we start to turn that looking inside, that joy generation, that happiness generation inside, and we start to find that the body as it is right now is a condition for happiness. The breath as it is right now, just as it is right now, is a real condition for happiness, a real condition for joy, a real condition for gratefulness, for peace. Just the breath as it is right now. This is something that is more reliable and that we don't have to look outside of ourselves to find. So if we can look on the bright side, as it were, seeing whatever good or benefit is to be found at this moment, we can be happy in our labors and get the results and benefits for our lives. But in general, people don't think like that. Instead, they consider such work tiring, difficult, and troublesome. They prefer other methods, such as theft, extortion, or trickery. They don't require so much effort and hardship. They want to make millions quickly, even if dishonestly. With such attitudes, there is no willingness to endure the hard work and difficulties of rowing a river taxi, pulling a rickshaw, sweeping streets, cleaning sewers, and the like. Nobody likes such work because they don't know how to improve their minds in order to like it. We need to study Dhamma. We need to study Buddhist teachings. We need to study the truth teachings enough to be able to improve mind so that we enjoy our tasks and our duties no matter what they are and can do them properly. We can improve our minds to be satisfied in any work, however sweaty, wearisome, and troublesome, so that there is no dukkha in it, so that there is no these extra layers of dissatisfaction, of unpleasantness in it. In comparison, consider the butterfly. It makes its living by gathering nectar from flowers while spreading pollen where it's needed and helping to make nature beautiful. The butterfly operates in such a way that it has no dukkha, it has no suffering. We too can operate and perform our tasks without suffering, without unsatisfactoriness. But to do that, we need to know how to improve mind first. We can't just mimic butterflies and do our duties intrinsically. As humans, we will need to understand how to improve our minds before we can do so. This is important. It is the way to survival. So please take an interest. A hired laborer, such as a laundry person or a dishwasher, doesn't need to look on their work as difficult and troublesome. Then, just by looking on tasks in the right way, we can perform them without having to be the me who is bitter, resentful, or disappointed. If we are employed to wash dishes, clean houses, do laundry, or cook and prepare food, anything that we must do can become an art form and be enjoyable. We can begin to understand such things like sweeping the house, the floors, and the yard as making things clean and tidy, so that we sweep and clean with love. When cleaning is an art form, we find satisfaction in each movement. When reminding ourselves of this, every time we clean the bathroom or take out the trash, we are content the whole time, not just when the job is over. If we are content while we are actually doing something, we turn our work into an art of enjoyment. That's a good quote, right? If we are content while we are actually doing something, we turn our work into an art of enjoyment. And we can also bring that to our meditation practice, right? Just breathing, just sitting, just being aware. If we are content while we are actually doing something, actually putting in the work, we turn our work into an art of enjoyment. Generally speaking, people aren't properly mindful of their work. Their minds wander and they aren't able to pay attention to the task at hand. Perhaps the work being done is looked down on, judged to be plebeian, slavish, and beneath one's dignity. However, if we know the truth, that there isn't anything that is common or base, then no matter what kind of work is done, it is accepted as something that helps feed us and sustains life. It all depends on our minds anyway. If we are smart enough, wise enough, we can find satisfaction in doing any kind of work, so long as it is ethical. This is the right way to consider all kinds of work. Some people see certain kinds of work as lowly and thus for inferior people to do. However, if we don't have the knowledge to advance us in the workaday world, we have to find a way to be happy with what we've got. Eventually, we may accumulate knowledge and thus earn our living by performing better, less physically demanding, and more elevated tasks. But whatever we do, and this isn't a teaching to enforce the working class to be subservient or something like that. This is the teaching. But whatever we do, we need to learn to do it in such a way that breeds satisfaction. If we have this attitude in how we approach everything we must do, working will be a kind of paradise for us. Our normal, ordinary, everyday lives will be a kind of paradise for us. Our meditation practice will be a kind of paradise for us. Whatever we do, we need to learn to do it in such a way that breeds satisfaction. If we have this attitude in how we approach everything we must do, everything we must do will be a kind of paradise for us. Okay, any questions or comments about what we read today? So we're going to be going through this reading over the next few days. Does anyone have any questions or comments about what we read so far?
Just like I've noticed the tendency with like any form of skill that when we first begin it, it's extremely difficult and it feels like we're making not a lot of progress. But if we keep at it every day, eventually it starts to become even enjoyable, even the more difficult aspects of it. I just see that reflected in what you just said there. Thank you very much.
And especially this skill kit of learning to do everything we do in such a way that breeds satisfaction, that generates contentment, that generates this being satisfied in each and every moment of whatever we happen to do. Thank you, Kit. Anyone else? Okay, so let's seal our gathering up, our special gathering up with a little bit more meditation, right? So find your meditation position. Okay. Comfortable and stable and upright. You know, we sit in this kind of dignified way. We are the royalty of learning to do what we should do, what we are doing, what we need to do, learning to do all that in such a way that breeds satisfaction, generates satisfaction. Meditation is our training ground for that. So sitting, shoulders back, our heads up, chest is open, soft front, strong back. Can start by taking a few deep breaths. Bringing the mind home to the body. Bring our mind that's always looking outside, bringing it inside, starting to look inside. Breathing and coming home to the body. Allowing the breath to find a natural rhythm, simple, natural, comfortable rhythm of breathing. Allowing the body to relax, to settle. Practicing together for these final few minutes. Just sitting. Just breathing and being aware of the whole body sitting here right now. And really enjoying this moment. Enjoying the heart and the lungs. Breathing as deeply as you need to. Feeling all that there is to feel in the whole body and mind right now. Just sitting, just breathing, just being aware. Okay, so at this moment, we can all bring our hands together. It's an expression of sincerity and coming together. And we just to take a deep bow to each other and also to our own meditation practice. All right? Thank you all so much for being here. What a robust and lively practice community we have. And happy to see some new faces and also some people who've been around for a while. And I look forward to continuing to practice together. And this week we will go through this book from Buddhadasa. We'll keep going through it. And if you need anything or you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay? Thank you all for being here. See you again soon.